product because I'm getting some guys, basically there's a lot of new people into the space. They may or may not know some of the details about all this stuff, so I'm going to do a quick update. We'll do some other videos on sort of in-depth stuff on other aspects of this, but on these mag catch upgrades, we've been building these for a while. We're up to Gen 2 now that work on basically all the AICS, so either of the poly stocks, the wood stock, void stocks, and then also we finally got a hold of some Model 10 stuff to test because people were asking about that. So if you've got a Model 10 that takes these AICS style mags with the catch on the magazine, and it's molded into the stock, so not an insert that you screw in, this catch will work for you. If you've got an insert that screws in for like a Model 10 or whatever, and it runs the AICS style mag, you can get another insert that screws in that's got a spring-loaded catch built into it. That was the original Model 10 that we were basically mimicking with our mag catch on the AICS and the non-Model 10 models. So they started, just for cost reduction and value engineering, making some of these changes. So hopefully that makes some sense to you guys looking at these various models, what you can run and what you can't run. The whole reason we did all this was so that you can run Model 10 mags, including this Savage 55185 magazine, which is the factory 10 round mag. Really works best with a max of 9. So, especially in Creedmoor when the shoulder's wider. So the thing with all this that I'm trying to make sure people understand is this mag catch upgrade does not allow you to run the AICS type mags. So if you want to run the standard off-the-shelf Accuracy International style aftermarket mags for bolt action rifles, which is, these are the typical ones, although there's a bunch of proprietary ones, Tikas, Savages, etc. If you got a Ruger American that doesn't take their proprietary mag, it takes an AI mag, or something like that. There's a bunch of other rifles. That's kind of a different world. If you want to be able to run the AI mags in an AICS, it's actually kind of tough. You're going to basically go to a chassis system, whether it's a AICS Precision factory kind of a chassis rifle, not a lot of those being sold, or it's like a aftermarket chassis, an Oryx or whatever on an AICS. But it's not easy to necessarily get into. So we'll do a separate video on kind of the pros and cons, like if you have, if you're looking at buying one platform or another, what would be good about, say, the AI types versus this type or whatever. But in this video, I just want to do an update on that. And then on the installation of these kits, I started nicking the springs because the idea originally was I would send the spring full length, which is basically twice as long as this, and then guys could trim it to length for their, to suit how much spring tension they wanted. And I just, people complained it was too tough, and so I started nicking them in half. And then on the Boyd stock, the thing is, on your Boyd stock, I don't know what you're doing to it. I don't know if it's got pillar bedding. I don't know if you're, glass bedding the whole thing. And some of that makes a difference in terms of where this thing sits and its location, and then, how much you guys are able to do if you're doing a basic bolt-in or if you're doing like a lot more custom work. So I'm not certain of that. And when I'm sending these out, I'm sending these, basics. So I'm not sending as the Boyd kits, especially, right? So it doesn't come with because I'm assuming some guys are using the, how it ships. They're just doing a basic bolt-in, and some guys are doing pillar bed jobs. So I don't send it with all the spacer parts. And then for the spring, there's not a lot of room, depending upon the inlet, and it can move around on those Boyd stocks a little bit because they're not the most precise on the inletting. So, and actually it's the mag location to the action. So this spring is tight if you're not doing it, if you're not relieving it, and like I said, it depends on how much custom work the guys are doing. So if you're just doing a basic bolt-in and you're not doing super custom work, it's going to be tight. So you can either trim the spring you can use a smaller spring. I think I'm going to start shipping it. I've got a cone spring that'll basically flatten to the wire diameter. I think I'll start shipping those to the Boyd stocks, because I don't know the level of, there's a lot of variables there, and it's tough for me to tell. With a factory stock, most guys, they're just buying and bolting it in. We haven't had any trouble, and that's been good. On the installation for the little spring clip that we introduced, the reason why we do it, and hopefully it makes sense, this is a factory AICS mag. This one's in 223. It doesn't make much difference, but this little tab that sticks out in the back is designed to sit on top of this plastic ramp. Well, the Model 10 mags, including this one, this tab is longer. It's trimmed for the AICS. So if we don't provide an area, for this tab to sit lower, it won't sit on top of this plastic bit. And so if we don't include this clip, you have to trim the plastic bit, which makes the backwards compatibility with your AICS mag kind of loose. And you can do that if you want to, in terms of trimming this, but that's why we include the clip, so that it can give it a lower position to grab. And then we break this edge so you're not pushing it up out of place. And if you want to run a screw through the backside or something, that's one of the reasons we use the clip, because when we were designing a part, basically this was the same part, and this was off the shelf and inexpensive and available, so we used it. And we haven't had any trouble with it except for the installation bit. So what I'm trying to explain is, if you put it in place and then try it on the ramped portion, this one's molded in, it's an older style poly stock. The newer style ones, the trigger guard's molded into the stock, and then this part is just an insert. So if you put it in place, put the clip in place to the ramped portion and test it out of the rifle, you're actually it's easier to get the location correct. And then once it's in a good spot, you could throw some SA glue on there, or run a screw through the backside, whatever. Just make sure there's nothing sticking out of the front for this tab to push it up out of place. But if you can't do that with it, make sure that it's in the right spot before you go forward to the installation. Because if this clip isn't in the right spot and you haven't trimmed this ramp down, if you're just retaining the front of this magazine, when you get it in the rifle, it'll go click and you might think it's in there, but you can grab it and rock it out. So if you can rock this thing out, it's not in the right spot. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So the AI mag compatibility, that's not what this kit is. It's just allowing you to use these, and you can see why we can use that, right? Because these metal parts are basically the same. There's, this one's a standard rifle, but you can see, essentially it's the same top half. So whether this box is small or big, it doesn't make any difference. The thing that we have to make sure we understand, or the guys understand that are buying these kits, is, what it does and how it works. It's not designed to give you, the AI mag compatibility. And then, like I said, if you're putting it on a Boyd stock and it's not a simple plug and play operation, like I said, I'm going to switch the spring, and hopefully that fixes that problem or moves us closer to that. But the anticipation with most of the Boyd stocks is the guys are doing some stock work. So whether you're pillar bedding it, you're clearancing the stock and relieving the area behind the catch for the spring, whatever. But for plug and play type, bolt-ins, we're going to start sending an additional shorter spring. So if you guys have questions or comments, let me know. Otherwise, I will kind of follow up with some other videos on some of these other details, like the bolt baffle and bolt knobs for the AICS stuff, for sort of the practical rifle builds, because that for me is what I do. Is I'm not a real target shooter. It's more about just a practical kind of flexible field rifle, and I think that makes sense in these AICS, and so we'll do some additional videos on that. Thanks, guys.